I guess that was somewhat to make up for last month. I could not be here because at the last moment I had car problems. For the second time with my car, about a year ago, my tires went flat at church. Last month, it was came out of church service that my car wouldn't start. Turns out it was the clutch. So glad to be here. This is a poem that I wrote some time ago. I've been writing on it for some time. I had time to actually finish everything up. It is, I am transgender. Transgender, a soul within, felt deep inside. Men and women very much misunderstood. Men and women very much human beings. Men and women true to who they are. Men and women expressing themselves. Men and women unacknowledged. Transgender. A word interwoven among millions. A word that labels men and women. Fathers, mothers, brothers and sisters. Women like Christine, Renee, Monica, and Rita. All women, each and every one. Billy, Alan, Joseph, and Chaz. All men, each and every one. Transgender. Genders expected by society. Genders decided by anatomy. Genders defined by expression, not what's inside. Transgender, a word that stirs hate inside both men and women. A word that just discriminates. Employment, housing, healthcare, and yes, even bathrooms. Many minds and hearts strains, violence, and even murders. Lives are precious, lives very much matter. Stares, sneers, shame, and bias. Fear, anxiety, depression, and even suicides. Transgender. Worth repeating with pride. Copper, Dewey, Compton, Stonewall. Transgender. One day at a time, one step at a time. A difficult journey to travel. Life free to live. Transgender. Living life authentically. Living life openly. Living life's real life's test. I am transgender.
Up next, Maria Clark.
Short story. It's a little, I guess it's my attempt at humor. May or may not work. It's titled A Southern Gentleman. Hey, oh good, you're awake. I was beginning to worry. The man sighed and groggily moved his head. Slowly, weakly. Oh, don't try to move. Nothing's happened, I can assure you. You were just unconscious, that's all. Questions buzzed through the man's head. When did I black out? Where am I? Why can't I move? The tired man looked up and saw another man in a light three-piece suit smiling at him from a chair just a few feet from him. It was a lavish chair that stood out in brilliant contrast to the dark drabiness of the rest of the room. The room. What was this room? Now, I know what you are probably thinking, the man in the chair said. The other man was still too groggy to understand what was happening. Allow me to introduce myself, he beamed, a heavy, thick, elaborate mustache on his face. I am Leslie St. Patrick, at your service. Leslie St. Patrick. Was this guy for real? No, please don't try to move too much, you'll hurt yourself. You see, went on the animated man, removing his suit jacket and rolling up his sleeves to his elbows, I think you're a very beautiful man, he said matter-of-factly, as if that was the most natural thing to say to someone who has just come to. I saw you and I thought, I must have him. I know, it's unseemly, but I cannot control myself at times, he said, beside an exaggeration. I was raised properly, he shrugged, but my urges get the better of me at times. He shook his head and clucked his tongue at himself in disapproval. The immobile man tried, but found unable to move his arms or legs. He looked down for the first time, as if it just now occurred to him to wonder where the hell he was, and he realized something was not right. He was not wearing clothes, and he was tied onto a giant X of a plank by his hands and feet. He looked around and found his clothes neatly hung on a hook on the wall, and his shoes, almost polished new, set perfectly beneath them. He turned his attention back to St. Patrick. Now, I can assure you, I am a Southern gentleman to my very core, he sighed, taking a large carving knife in his hand. I will honor your beautiful body with a proper respected stew, because you are a fine, fine young man, and an altar which I must worship. Leslie St. Patrick wasn't old, he must have been in his early 30s, but the man who was approaching did not care. He began to panic, to beg and ask what was happening. St. Patrick stopped. Why, I'm going to love your body the way it told me to. Your body speaks, he sighed, cradling the knife to his chest as if holding a precious child, and it told me how to love you. The man begged, please don't. But St. Patrick only smiled as he caressed and kissed the captive foot, and the blade grazed along the top. Please don't move, St. Patrick sighed. It might get messy if you do. And he sliced. Sliver after sliver of precious skin came off the captive man and onto Leslie's shaking and awaiting hand. His face was euphoric as the blood ran down the silver of the blade. Red hugged his hands and dripped from his knuckles that caressed every piece of delectable flesh that made St. Patrick dizzy with ecstasy. The man shouted and begged and screamed and begged some more. He cried for help, for someone to rescue him, to stop, to just please stop. And when St. Patrick didn't stop, he begged for a quick end. St. Patrick paused at this, noting nothing left of the man's leg but the raw pink of his dermis. Quick, like with a gun? The man could barely move, but in his soul, he prayed for one. Yes, anything, just end it. St. Patrick looked around as if wondering if he had such a tool in his handy-dandy room of pleasure, and he laughed. Oh, wait, every good Southerner has a gun, he chuckled easily to himself. Please wait here, I'll be quick. He stood and wiped his hands on a pristine white rag, mesmerized as the streaks stained the fabric, and he sighed. It was beautiful. Leslie returned with a handgun, nothing terribly impressive, and the man could barely see through his haze vision, and he felt elated. There it was, his freedom. St. Patrick sighed in a troubled manner. You know, I can never get behind this, he reasoned. These things are violent. They promote violence. But if it comforts you, I suppose I would keep it here for you. Here, you can hold it. He placed the handgun in the man's hand. It's a free country, I suppose. St. Patrick smiled wide at the barely conscious man and took the knife anew. The man held the gun and flipped his wrist to hold it down in St. Patrick's direction. The Southern man, looking up at him, smiled. Now see, this is why I don't like guns. It truly does promote violence, he said, shaking his head. The man, barely conscious, took a breath and pulled the trigger. Leslie St. Patrick smiled and began to chuckle. Now, I am a Southern gentleman, he said with a smile. I would never give my honored guest a loaded gun. That would be uncouth. But please feel free to hold it if it brings you comfort. And Leslie St. Patrick sliced and sliced and sliced some more.
Wow.
And still on topic. Okay. Ryan Grosz.
Off the cuff. It wasn't my first job in service, but I did work in catering. It was a college job, summers, everything was great. You could make $10,000 in 3 months, go back to school, live like a king, buy everybody cocaine. The catch is that I expected to be a busboy when I showed up for this job. And it turns out they expected me to be a cook. I would say over those 4 years, I probably cooked about 80,000 lobsters, throwing them into a boiling death. I have opened well over 100,000 oysters and clams. But I had Chef Jeff. He was my chef. He was a great man. He used to call me James Dean because I used to have hair. I had a pompadour. He always, James Dean! He also had a fondness for alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine. And cigarettes. He would always say to me, like, hey man, we're doing a clam bake. Let's get baked. It was a day I was working an 11-foot grill outside in 90-degree weather, in the sun. And I've got steak, chicken, swordfish, and salmon all going on this thing. And he comes by and he's just like, James Dean, pushes my salmon. He goes, you know what happens when you cook salmon like that? I said, what? He goes, I get hard. I was like, all right, I'm doing well. And there was our buddy Roger, who worked in the kitchen. I worked with him for 4 years. First year working with Roger, all he knew in English, he was Nicaraguan, all he knew was, okay, buddy. That was it. He'd be like, Roger, give me salad for 40. Okay, buddy. He'd be like, I have no idea if this guy just got what I'm talking about. 10 minutes later, there would be a giant wooden bowl of salad that was wrapped up in saran wrap that could survive a nuclear holocaust. And one day, Roger and Chef Jeff disappeared. And I was like, what happened to Royer and Jeff? And, oh, by the way, Royer's second year that I worked with him, he had 2 phrases. It was, okay, buddy, and Chef Jeff is a motherfucker. But both of them were gone. I said, what happened? They were like, Roger he got deported. And I was like, okay, and Jeff? And they were like, he went back to Nicaragua to go smuggle them back into the country. I was like, okay. They show up a couple of days later, and there's Roger's brother and sister with him as well. They're on the line now. I was like, Jeff, for real, like, I don't want to know how you did this. Why did you do this? He's like, that's my soup buddy, James Dean. He makes the best clam chowder up here. I'm like, fair. All right. And we worked 19-hour days. It was brutal. And here's the thing, is cooks never eat. Or if you do, it's something really horrific that you scrape together in the kitchen. Me and my friend Mike, who would often spend nights in our separate cars in the parking lot because there was no point to drive home for 4 hours of sleep, we would put horseradish on a baguette with green Tabasco sauce. That was lunch. Because it makes your body go, oh, you call this food? Not hungry anymore. Not hungry. I had a great time working there. Even to this day, I'm still friends with the other cooks that I worked with, even though we're spread about the country. And it was at my 30th birthday, 3 of us got together in my tiny Brooklyn kitchen, and we just fell into the groove. It was a kitchen no larger than this wooden stage. Fell in the groove, didn't even need to talk. And we're dropping trays of food 3 stories out the window for my buddy outside to throw on the grill. And he's catching it. Kitchen makes connections. It connects you with your coworkers, and it connects you with the people who are eating. Because there is no greater sign of love than feeding someone. And I spent 3 days of crying when I found out that Chef Jeff had overdosed. But we all saw that heart attack come.
Oh, Ruiz. Thank you the first time around.
Okay, I've got 2 things. One's a lobo. The other night at our shaman circle, one of the drums became unbearably loud and aggressive, pounding at my temples to the point that my whole body began to tense. I nearly stood up to walk out, thinking whoever was drumming obviously had some unresolved issues, and I didn't want to be a passive recipient of them. But just as I found myself rolling away from the sound of that drum, something in me contracted. A new thought began pushing back against the weight. I'm bigger than that. I don't need to be afraid. I don't even need to defend. I just need to expand. And with that thought, I felt myself growing, stretching out past our circle, past our room, enveloping all of Austin and bleeding into the sky. My breathing deepened, the sound of the drum receded, my muscles softened, and a smile spread across my face. When the rattle began to pull us back to the room, my spirit glanced down at my body, and I noticed a gray wolf lying peacefully across my legs. It was alert, ears perked, its eyes intent as fire, stared protectively at the offending drum. But it did not register any sign of danger. I could feel its warm, furry belly inhaling and exhaling against my skin as it panted playfully. I felt safe and at ease. Then it hit me. There's no need to fear the world that howls and bangs at the windows, for my spirit extends beyond time, beyond this body. I only limit myself by railing against these forces, give them power in my resistance. Anger is only useful when it ignites action, but it cannot sustain life. So why do I allow myself to be confined by the small-minded, instead of simply engulfing them with the power of my full presence? So I call it forth like heralding the ocean, and let it wash over me and carry me in its wake, where laughter becomes my most potent weapon, and a knowing smile cuts as sharp as a knife. And this is the one inspired by Brian in the last meeting, kick butt. Unexpected. I want to peel off my skin, undress the worries and fears, stand naked in the insecurity of breath. Fold back the layers to the space between the cells, the air we share, the thoughts we try to claim as our own, that are fragile, tissue paper thin, butterfly wings. All I can do is stand still enough to let this moment land lightly on my shoulder and whisper in my ear before it flies away again. I want to inhale it, soak it in like the earth embracing the rain after a parched summer. Ground ravaged by heat, dirt cracked, split open. I want to let myself be soft, wet, receptive, swell with life. Allow it to all just be. Right now, no expectations.
Donna. Dechen Birdwell. Gotta put the whole name in there.
Okay, I actually brought something I was going to read, but I'm so inspired with the little food. Got to roll with the food.
Work.
So, as most of you know, I am an anthropologist by profession. And, sorry, and my first field work when I was still in graduate school was in northern Belize, in a village that was populated mostly by Yucatec Mayan people. I found myself in a lovely little house, and I made arrangements to take my meals with the family next door. Belizean women, especially Yucatec Mayan Belizean women, are amazing cooks. And her desire to feed me well knew no bounds. She could cook all kinds of meats, chicken, pigs, deer, animals that I had never seen before. Gibnut was especially valued in this community. And a gibnut is actually a very large rodent, but quite delicious. And I had never been a really big meat eater before I went there. But I will tell you that after I had lived there for a while, when I would see a man coming into the village with a dead deer on his back, my mouth would begin to water. Because I knew there would be venison stew for supper. As the season went on, and we got into the time when the men were working at other tasks and didn't have a lot of time for hunting, and when they needed to preserve, the flock of chickens that they had, we began to eat a lot of beans. My friend Estella, who was my cook and my friend, she referred to beans, she said, beans were la reina de la mesa, the queen of the table. And she could cook beans of all kinds, that were really quite delicious. The season rolled on. The beans from last season's harvest became scarce. The corn from last season's harvest became scarce. And we reached a point, quite literally, when it was flour tortillas for breakfast, flour tortillas for lunch, and flour tortillas for supper. It's not a very nutritious diet. But I was there to learn what it was like, insofar as I could, what it was like to be them. And so I ate what they ate, although I did buy the cheese whiz at the shop and the peanut butter when I went into town. It made the flour tortillas a little bit better, and I shared with the family. Seasons rolled on, and we got to springtime, well, what we refer to as spring here, but as the new harvest began. Tomatoes, like I had not seen in many, many years. Tomatoes that we pay premium prices for in the grocery store, they would cut into and toss out for the chickens, because they weren't fit to eat. I remember going out to the far milpas, riding horseback out to the cornfields, and we were all hot and thirsty when we got there, so we went to the watermelon patch. And they picked some watermelons, took the machetes, sliced into them, and we just ate the hearts out of them and threw the rest away. And so when they told me, characterizing their village, I learned to believe what they said. Yes, there were lean times, but what they liked to characterize themselves as, they said, somos pobres de dinero, pero ricos de comida. We're poor in money, but rich in food. And they were right.
All right, Lynn.
Okay. When Teresa announced that this was going to be about soul food, I took it figuratively. What nourishes the soul? And I was going to say, this is one of the things that nourishes my soul. This and the other two poets groups that I belong to. But everybody else seems to be taking it literally and talking about food. So I hope it's okay to sing a song that I only wrote the music to, not the words. I wrote one verse, but it didn't have to do with food. So I'll sing you the two that did have to do with food. This was a theater I was at. Eventually I became not just an actor, but a composer in residence. And well, anyway, it was about the show. It was a musical, and it was about it was a spoof on cults, religious cults. This was a mythical ashram, and so I'll I'll sing just the two verses that I didn't write the words to, but just the music, if I can remember. When the sun shines bright on the broccoli patch, there's communion, there is union, a sweet communion. When the rays conspire with our seeds' desire, there's a birth, in the earth, there's a birth. When broccoli, what was the next veggie? Anyway, if I think of it, I'll throw it in somewhere. And then the next one, it's recognition time. We're humble spinach leaves, vitamin A. How we got that way? When I wasn't planning to do this. It's just
Actually, great.
that I started doing that. Something about the, oh shucks. Well, anyway, when there's a, anyway, the last one was, all the rind is tough, bottom soft inside the cantaloupe is full of hope. I can run, propagated the fully for the prolific rate of my seeds, meet my needs. Oh, it's so natural, so wholly natureful to have abundance on earth. So, oh yeah, I told you it was a religious cult, a spooky religious cult. So that the Hodis were the name of them. Holy Order of the Divine Illumination. So now I remember one of the other verses, something about holy devotion, starting and strong commotion that brings our head to our bed, to our head. That was lettuce leaves. That was anyway. What was I saying now? Anybody remember the chorus just now? Oh, it's so natural. It's so wholly natureful to have abundance on earth. So if we follow devotion's motion, everything, something is, it is a rebirth. So it's so natural to our so wholly natureful to have abundance on earth. So if we follow devotion's motion, something or other is a rebirth. So
All right, and Thom, you get to follow that.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, 3-course meal in 5 minutes. First course for Brian. I was a cook's assistant in the Australian Army. That was when I had really long hair, beard, wore a top hat and tails and other flamboyant affectations, and they were terrified. These were the days where people literally took drugs, and they were terrified. So because I had really long hair and a really long beard and I was very, very cool. And they thought I was going to drop acid in their food, okay? So they made me wear a hairnet, a face mask, gloves at all times, and I had a terrified look. And I thought, if you're the people in the army who are going to defend our country, I feel stronger than you. I feel stronger than your fear. Okay, 2 weeks ago, every Wednesday we meet at a food court called Rud Radam, It's way down 615 Radam Lane, South Austin, near the hospital. So if you can't stand the poetry, go straight to casualty. But 2 weeks ago, they turned the power off because they had an electrical fire in the house next door. So being hippies, they were not going to take this lightly because the Thai food ban that was there had disappeared, had been sold off to some Montana. Can you imagine Thai food in Montana? I couldn't, but someone could. So we were left there with no power, no van, no food, which is a crime against humanity. You know, food and poetry, they go together like cheese and chalk. So, thank you very much. and we thought, what can we do? We want to have poetry and we want to have food for the soul. So, my friends, there was a leftover trailer there, a burrito trailer, that was only open during the day for the morning breakfast time. And so they jumped the power on that, and we had PA and we had poetry. The third story is the best one. I get an instant message, which is, I'm too slow for instant messaging, you know. But I get an instant message saying, get on down, the Rainbow Church now. And so I go to recycle reeds and I go to kick butt. And then the next day, I put everything I've got, back in the second-hand rust bucket, which is here outside, and take it down to Wildflower Church on Altdorf. Why? Because it's the first point of contact for the people from Hurricane Harvey in Houston. Okay, but this is different. They have food, lots of food. They have clothes, lots of clothes. They have acupuncture, they have massage, they have a guy doing haircuts all the time, and they have a black DJ making music to the whole thing, so it's like a festival. But this is the astonishing truth of it. All the volunteers that I met were all poets. Poets feeding people. Can you imagine that? Mostly you think of poets as people feeding off the energy of the people, but there was, it was Element 615, who's one of the hosts that have spoken to her tonight, who sent the instant message out, and he'd been there for 3 days. Stacey Shea, who used to run a venue, but she's Flying Black Arts, she'd been there for 3 days. They both had the wild look of cosmic eyes, you know what I mean? When they're beyond exhaustion, and they must make sure that everyone else gets water and everyone else gets fed. There they are. Then I meet Rhiannon. Rhiannon had been homeless and still ran a venue, Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream, a poetry venue, and then ran another one up in the north at a coffee shop. Homeless on the street running a venue. Magnificent work. But now she's got a matching house and husband, and soon she'll have college. You know, what more could any woman want except more? So she's there doing everything for everyone. And I meet Poda, and now I meet Tara. Tara is this mystic woman who traveled the world, as you did, and was absolutely culturally attuned, as you are, to the food and the vicissitudes and the discrepancies and divergencies of all the different cultures that are there to inspire our cuisine and diet. The way we live is the way our influences are given to us. We are the food of our ancestors. We are passed down messages from ancestral genes. Sometimes they wake us up and we realize that we were dreaming. And sometimes the food comes in the form of true stories like those three.
Sorry, I have to end the timer. Turn off the timer. Well, thank you everyone for showing up on my mother's 77th birthday.
Yay! Happy birthday, Mom!